Have you ever wondered what led to the long-standing Israel-Palestine conflict? The roots of the conflict are deeply intertwined with history, religion, and politics. The land we now know as Israel and Palestine has long been a point of contention, with both Jewish and Arab communities asserting historical and religious ties to the region. For the Jewish people, this land holds a significant place in their historical narrative, tracing back to biblical times. It was here that the ancient kingdom of Israel was established, a place of profound religious significance. On the other hand, the Arab Palestinians point to their lengthy lineage in the land, with roots extending back to the Canaanites, the indigenous inhabitants of the region before the arrival of the Israelites. The Arabs, predominantly Muslim, also hold the land sacred due to the presence of significant Islamic holy sites, such as the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The turn of the 20th century saw the arrival of a new player on the stage, the British. In the aftermath of World War I, Britain took control of the region, then known as Palestine, under a League of Nations mandate. The British leadership, however, was a tumultuous one, marred by conflicting promises to both the Jewish and Arab communities. The aftermath of World War II marked a pivotal moment in the conflict. The horrific genocide of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust led to a surge of Jewish immigration to Palestine, with survivors seeking refuge in a homeland. This influx further intensified tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab Palestinians, leading to escalating violence and unrest. In response to the growing strife, the newly formed United Nations proposed a partition plan in 1947, aiming to divide the land into separate Jewish and Arab states. However, the plan was rejected by the Arab nations and the Palestinian leadership, setting the stage for the first Arab-Israeli war. The seeds of discord were sown, and the stage was set for a conflict that would span decades. The year 1948 marked a pivotal moment in the history of the Middle East. In the ashes of the Second World War, the United Nations proposed a plan to partition Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. The Jewish Agency for Palestine accepted this proposal, and on May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was declared. This momentous event wasn't welcomed by everyone. The neighboring Arab states, who had rejected the UN partition plan, declared war on Israel immediately. This was the beginning of what is now known as the First Arab-Israeli War. During the war, Israel managed to not only defend its territory but also expand it, gaining control over more than half of the area allocated to the proposed Arab state. The war ended in 1949 with ceasefire agreements, but not before causing significant displacement of both Jewish and Arab populations. The Palestinian people found themselves in a particularly precarious situation. Many were displaced during the war, becoming refugees in neighboring Arab countries. This displacement, known as the Nakba or catastrophe, has had lasting effects on the Palestinian people and their relationship with Israel. The First Arab-Israeli War set the stage for the ongoing conflict in the region. The war created deep-seated animosity and mistrust between Israel and its Arab neighbors, a sentiment that has fueled many conflicts since. This period also marked the start of the Palestinian refugee issue, which remains one of the most challenging aspects of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Millions of Palestinians still live in refugee camps, their lives shaped by a war that took place more than 70 years ago. The birth of Israel and the First Arab-Israeli War were critical events that have shaped the course of history in the Middle East. They've left a lasting legacy of conflict and displacement, but also a desire for resolution and peace. The lines were drawn and the battle lines were cemented. The following decades were marked by wars, uprisings, and attempts at peace. The Six-Day War of 1967 was a significant event that changed the landscape of the conflict. Israel, in a surprise attack, seized control of the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. The victory, swift and decisive, expanded Israel's territorial hold, but it also intensified the conflict. Then came the Yom Kippur War in 1973. Named so as it broke out on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Egypt and Syria launched a coordinated attack on Israel. Despite initial losses, Israel managed to push back the invading forces, but the war resulted in a severe psychological blow to the nation and led to increased U.S. involvement in the region. In the midst of this turmoil, there were also attempts at peace. The 1990s saw a glimmer of hope with the Oslo Accords. Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization recognized each other officially for the first time. They agreed on a plan to give Palestinians more control over the West Bank and Gaza, setting the stage for further negotiations. However, the peace was short-lived. The Camp David summit in 2000, aimed at resolving the conflict once and for all, ended without an agreement. The contentious issues of Jerusalem, borders, and refugees remained unresolved, leading to the Second Intifada, a violent Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation. So we see a pattern of wars and peace efforts, each leaving their indelible mark on the region. The conflict has seen moments of hope, overshadowed by periods of intense violence. The question remains, will there ever be a lasting peace in this region? Despite attempts at peace, the conflict continued. Scene script. Fast forward to now, the conflict is far from over. As we look at the current climate, it's clear that the age-old conflict between Israel and Palestine continues to shape the region. Tensions are fueled by political changes, both within Israel and across the Middle East. Israel is preparing to swear in its most right-wing government in history, a move that has sparked concerns far and wide. Jordan's King Abdullah II has expressed concern about potential changes to the status of Jerusalem's holy sites. Jerusalem, a city sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims, is at the heart of this conflict. The incoming Israeli government includes figures who have called for changes to the status quo at these holy sites, a prospect that has Jordan, the custodian of Jerusalem's holy sites since 1924, on high alert. Meanwhile, the potential return to power of Benjamin Netanyahu, a figure known for his opposition to the establishment of a Palestinian state, has raised alarm among Palestinians. His likely alliance with ultra-nationalist figures has sparked fears of increased hostility and more extreme occupation measures. The conflict is not contained within these borders, though. It spills over, affecting the relationships Israel shares with its Arab neighbors and Western allies. The King of Jordan emphasizes that Israel's integration into the region hinges on a future for the Palestinians. He speaks of the importance of regional integration and economic dependency as ways to move beyond these political problems. The situation in Israel and Palestine also impacts the lives of Christians in the Middle East. Jordan has become a safe haven for Middle Eastern Christians, and there are ongoing efforts to promote unity against extremist views and inclusivity between Christianity and Islam. But amidst this intricate web of tension and conflict, violence has flared in the West Bank and Gaza. Palestinians fear that a Netanyahu win could mean more of the same, a continuation of the cycle of conflict and violence. The present reflects the past, and the future remains uncertain. The current situation in Israel and Palestine is a stark reminder of the long and complex history of this region. As we move forward, one can only hope for a future where peace and coexistence become more than just a distant dream. The ripples of the Israel-Palestine conflict reach far beyond its epicenter. This decades-long dispute has left an indelible mark on the world stage, influencing diplomatic relations, political landscapes, and human lives across the globe. In Europe, the conflict's effects are felt most acutely through the refugee crises. Thousands of Palestinians displaced by the turmoil have sought refuge on European shores. These new arrivals, while welcomed by some, have also strained resources and sparked debates about immigration and integration. The struggle for a cohesive response underscores the challenges Europe faces in grappling with the fallout of a conflict rooted in lands far away. The impact on the Middle East, however, is far more direct and profound. The Arab-Israeli conflict has long been a catalyst for regional instability, with neighboring countries often drawn into the fray. Countries like Jordan, home to a large Palestinian population, have had to delicately balance their relations with Israel while also addressing the concerns of their Palestinian constituents. The conflict also influences the region's geopolitics, often shaping alliances and enmities among nations. Furthermore, the Israel-Palestine conflict has a significant influence on the religious dynamics of the Middle East. As Jerusalem, a city sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, remains a contentious point in the dispute, the conflict reverberates through the religious communities across the region and beyond. This tension not only fuels the dispute but also impacts the broader discourse on religious rights and freedoms. The conflict also has a profound impact on economies. The instability it generates can deter investment and disrupt trade in the region, affecting economic growth and development. The ripple effects of these economic disruptions can be felt globally, highlighting the conflict's far-reaching implications. The Israel-Palestine conflict is not an isolated issue, but one that affects the world. Its resolution, therefore, is not just the concern of the people directly involved, but of everyone who believes in the principles of peace, justice, and human rights. As we continue to grapple with its global impact, the call for a just and lasting resolution becomes ever more urgent and necessary.